We'll take 10 more seconds. Okay, amazing. So we see that quite a lot of people in the room have already started the strategic planning process for 2021, which is great. Couple of people haven't, which is all right, and that's why we are here today. So this is good to know. I was just trying to understand like what's the sense in the room. Is this process started yet? Where are you? And things like that. Sorry, I went on mute by mistake. So just to like quickly get another sort of sense in the room, I have another question. I'll just quickly share it on the screen again. Okay, so this is an open question. People who've already started the process of strategy planning, people who haven't, if you can quickly put down on the chat about how do you actually feel about planning for the upcoming year? What are some of the top of your mind thoughts? Again, you can put down a word or statement, however you're feeling right now. Take about 30 seconds, type it out in the chat box. Again, there is no right and wrong over here. Just to get a sense of what's there in the room, and also to get an understanding of how everybody is feeling in the room. So take about 10-30 seconds and put down how you're feeling about planning for the upcoming year and what are you thinking. Great. We are seeing that there are a lot of people who are excited for the new avenues. There is fundraising, new avenues, there is right planning. A lot of people have questions about how and what to implement during the pandemic, and if the second wave also happens. There's a lot of uncertainty. That's very true. Great. Yeah, there is strategic collaborations, uncertainty. It's hard to plan. That's very true. It's very difficult right now to plan and execute. Absolutely. We'll take some more responses. Amazing. All right. And like how to make the an organization sustainable in terms of fundraising and looking for new collaboration. Thank you so much, everyone, for putting down your responses. This gives me a good sense again, like what you're feeling. It is definitely a world that is uncertain. Then that takes me to the next uh, sort of idea of what we are going to be doing today, and why are we doing this webinar in the first place, right? We are actually living in a VUCA world. You might have heard this word before, but VUCA actually stands for it's a volatile world. There are things that are rapidly changing and it's unexpectedly changing. We don't know what's going to happen next. It's very uncertain. There are too many known unknowns. We know that there is a pandemic going on, but what happens if the pandemic is going on? Is there going to be another lockdown? Is there going to be a second wave? We know about it, but we don't know if it happens, what to do. It's a complex problem. Again, we being in the social sector in itself, the problems that we actually deal with are complex in itself. And there are so many factors to think about. We want to provide education, but children do not have laptops at their home. We want to provide healthcare, but people do not have food at home. These are all complex problems, and there are so many factors to think about. And it's very ambiguous, right? Like we don't know which path to take. Every path is right, but there are so many things that can be done, but we don't know which is the right path. So we are living in a VUCA world, and this is the time that we haven't faced before. This is a time that hasn't happened in quite a long time with us, and a lot of things have changed. Um, So definitely it is a time that is important for us to rethink what we need to do. But before we actually go into the webinar content in itself, like I want to touch upon a few key points and a few mentalities that we need to move forward with today, and we need to build into our mindset so that we can actually plan better for the year. So the key points that I want you to know is that first we need to build up adaptability in our plan. We want to make sure that uh, there is room for changes in our plan in itself. The strategy plan that we are talking about is that your structure is going to be the strategy for this year. Your plan needs to be in a way that is going to be that can be amended fast, that can be changed fast, and it is flexible. We need to plan for a lot of what if scenarios. We need to plan for what if this happens, what if that happens, what if a lockdown happens, what if another second wave happens. These are all the mindsets that we need to go through. So the strategy plan in itself is not the strategy, but the structure is going to be the strategy for us in this year. So just like let's understand what is flexibility. When I talk about flexibility, right, like flexibility in an organization, mainly when I'm saying it basically means three things. It means that you as an organization is able to make decisions quickly, which means that there is speed in your system, in your organizational system. There you are able to do experiments in your organization. There is room for people to try things and let go if it does not work. You cannot hang around with a set of activities or things that you plan for the year, but you need to just let it go if it is not working. You need to reduce the experimental risk, um, and you need to give people the permission and instruction to develop a culture of experimentation. The people in your organization are going to be making a lot of changes. There needs to be quick feedback loops where there are things that are happening. You need to understand that how are things changing. You need to make sure that people are giving you those feedback, and you're building those systems in your organization where you're taking feedback and implementing them fast. And the third thing in terms of flexibility means that there is a distributed decision making. As a leader of the organization, we've always sort of made decisions by ourselves. But during this year, you need to make sure that people on the front line do not need to go through multiple layers of permission, because that's going to delay processes. Things are not going to change. Things are going to change rapidly, and hence they need to be empowered in terms of not only having the responsibility of changing things, but also the authority of changing things. So that's what flexibility looks like in this year. So quickly, let's understand organizational planning in itself has existed over decades, right? It has existed even before business schools came in, before consulting organizations came in. So what is actually different, like right now? Why do we need to do it right now in a crisis? We've always planned as a one-time activity. You must have seen that we make plans in the start of the year and then do not look at it at all, or it is done in one of the retreats, or in situations like that. So what is different in this year is that actually strategy planning or annual planning in the year is it's an iterative process. It's a sort of a circle of doing, achieving, learning, doing, achieving, learning, and then going over and over again. So basically the objective of this the day is to ensure that I ease some of your pressure that annual planning has it generally creates for leaders of the organization, and help you simplify the process. I know that a lot of people over here have already started the process. So see if this sort of structure validates the process you are actually doing, and see if the tools that I'm going to be sharing with you today, if you can actually apply it in your process, and see if you've missed out anything through the process of strategy planning. And obviously, like, do keep sharing about like how you're going about it. If you've actually sort of um, done any best practices to come up with these plans, do share it with the team, with the participants, so that we learn from you as well. So coming back to what is planning, right? Planning is the constant state of imagining the future and acting in the present. Again, I repeat, it's imagining the future and acting in the present, and those two things cannot be different from each other. A good plan generally should not leave an element of surprise. It increases your ability to sense, shape, and adapt the future. But what has the pandemic done to us? We all know, we are actually, all of us are acting in the present because we don't know what's happening tomorrow. So let's fix things today. Let's do things today, day by day. Whatever is coming, we'll solve the challenges and we'll move ahead. Most of us are doing it, and that's the truth. But what are we doing to ourselves and to our organization? We are not foreseeing the challenges that might come. There might be bigger things that might come that we've not seen, and hence just looking in the present and working on it is not going to serve us anything. Hence, making sure as leaders you have a 360 vision of where you're going, what are your goals, and also making sure your today's activities are linked to the goals that you set for yourself. So basically, we are going to be doing 4 things today, and this is the framework generally I will be following for the day. There are The first thing that we are going to be understanding is where are we right now, and to do that, we will be going through the process of reviewing the previous year. So just understanding what is the previous year looking like, what are the learnings from it, and how we've sort of changed over the past year. That's the first thing we'll be doing. Then we will also think about where are we going, what do we want to achieve. So setting some clear goals for ourselves, for our organization, is the second thing that we will be looking at. The third thing that we'll be doing is what is going to get in our way. So what are some of the risks and what are some of the assumptions we are taking as an organization, as a leader of the organization? Again, something that most of the time we miss out, but also we know there are risks going to come up, but anticipating them just lowers the effect on our organization. And the fourth and the last thing, which we generally jump into, which is what do we need to do to get to where we want to go, which is the action plan, right? That's the plan that comes in, and then that's what you look at, and that's what your team looks at, and that's the last thing that we are going to be looking at today. Okay, so without wasting any time, let's go into the reviewing the previous year. As you can see, it's a more qualitative way of doing this. So again, look at these tools that I'm giving. I've tried to put it in simple ways. There are different ways of doing it. So again, just to reiterate, there is no one way of reviewing. Your organization must be following certain procedures, and if that works for you, well and great. But to review the previous year, what I've put down is that look at all the functional areas of your organization, right? Like it could be your programs, your human resources, your finances, how do you manage money, your fundraising, who brings in money, any other functional areas that you have in your organization. If your organization's small, it will have lesser. If your organization's big, it'll have more. But look at each of these areas and look at it from a point of view. If you have a team for it and they have certain roles and responsibilities that they carry out, and they are achieving certain outcome, that becomes a functional area in itself. Look at each of them. The way you could do it is also let these teams do this exercise themselves, understand what went well. Again, this in one slide looks as a small activity, however, do it in as much depth as possible. So what went well, what were the things that went well in your programs? So for example, you could probably say that, oh, because of the pandemic, we were sort of going to be doing our programs on field, but now we had an opportunity to take it online, and we never thought that this could be possible, and that way we have been able to reach more people. So that is something that went well. What did not go well? We were not able to probably meet the needs of our beneficiaries as much. We were not able to reach the children we wanted to reach, and hence a lot of people started leaving out or going away from our program. So that could be one way of looking at it. What were some of the opportunities that you thought that you can actually implement in this year? So put these down as much as in detail as possible. Just a second. Give me one sec. There's a lot of noise behind. I'll sort of come back. Sorry for that. So coming back to what went well, what did not go well. Again, put down very in a lot of details about the things that happened in your organization. This is some sort of a qualitative review that you do for your organization. It could happen in one go in one sitting, or it could happen over multiple conversations with your team. You could do it formally, informally, however you want, right? Moving forward, then you have to also do the review of the previous year in a quantitative way. Again, this is a much more structured way. Each of your sections of your organization, each of your functional areas of your organization will have certain indicators that you'll have. So in your program, if you're an education organization, you'll have what are the student learning outcomes looked like last year, what were the number of awareness sessions we did last year. If you all are a health organization, how many camps did you do last year? All of these things becomes your indicator. So last year also you must have done some planning. Check it against the planning, because the year started with the pandemic. Your plan sort of like went down, and like you knew that it's going to change. But see, if you planned something and you achieved something, did you increase your, did you actually overachieve it, did you underachieve it, what happened, what went wrong, what went right, things like that. Put it down for each of this, in programs, in outreach. If you had to reach certain number of stakeholders, were you able to meet it? If you had to form a few partnerships, were you able to form these partnerships? Similarly, do it for your financial income and expenditure. See your cash flow, see how you were able to spend, which month did you end up spending the most, what was your highest spend, what was your lowest spend, currently how much money do you have in your bank account. If you weren't able to raise any funds in this year, how long will you be able to survive? Who are your top funders? How do you engage them? Why are they still there with you? Again, doing a very, very quantitative review of looking at data, looking at numbers, looking at indicators. Again, human resource indicators, right? How did you end up hiring new people in this year? Or were there any attrition? Did people started leaving? And this year, a very unique thing happened with the NGO sector. A lot of layoffs happens, which layoffs is not a very common thing that happens in any industry, but we had to let go a lot of people, right? Like how many people did we let go? What happened? Why did we let them go? And things like that. Put it down in sort of a quantitative way, and understand why this happened. Could we have done something else about it? And also social media indicators. If you have a marketing team, like likes, engagement, did people start liking you more on social media? Was there engagement that increased? Are people more likely to be on social media now, less likely? Where is the engagement the highest? Again, please note that this is only an indicative list. This is not a complete list. Um, there might be other areas of your organization that you can actually go into detail and see how you've done versus what you planned. So this is a review of the previous year. Once you do a thorough review of your previous year, you go into understanding what to keep and what to let go. So there are some indicators I've put down in terms of what do you want to keep and what to let go. So there are four things that you need to look at. One is whether in a certain specific activity or a certain specific area of your organization, how much money did you spend? How much effort did it take for you? Was it did you have to change everything in your organization, bring in more resources? uh, what kind of time did you invest in it? Did you end up spending a lot of time, but did it actually like help you achieve what you wanted to do? And in the end, like, what did it actually make an impact? You must be doing multiple awareness sessions, but if like hardly anybody was attending it, then maybe the impact was lower. So just understanding certain things that worked, and looking at these four indicators. Did I spend enough money? Was it a lot? Was it less? Did we have to put a lot of effort? Did we have to put low effort? Was the time enough? Was it too high? Or were we able to make an impact or not? So these are the indicators to decide whether from the last year, what are the things to keep and what are the things to let go. Moving on to setting clear goals, then again, doing it in a more qualitative way, just sitting down with your team and asking your team about, imagine if this year is going to be a successful year, what would it look like? What would it look like for your stakeholders? What would it look like for your organization? What would it look like for the team? And what would it look like for the individual themselves? And these would be, again, just doing the planning not only from an organizational level but from a 360 level, thinking about each and every person we interact with through our organization. So trying to get this answers out of your team and not just giving it yourself, because you'll also have certain biases and some apprehensions. So doing it with the team and taking it forward. Once you've done this, and once like people imagine what the future looks like, you need to again put it down into more clear quantitative goals, because at the end of the day you will be tracking it against more quantitative than more qualitative, but both are important at the end of the day. However, for like an organizational, ensuring that you're tracking data regularly, you'll have to put down goal areas as well. While just going back to the review process, you will also understand that while you're trying to see and review the year, you'll find out that there is some data that we don't have. Probably we do not know how many stakeholders we reach, or we probably do not know what is the highest spend or lowest spend. These are also learnings for us, right? We will know that that we as an organization were not able to track these things, and that becomes a learning. So we need to make
Back
sure
कसं
that
रूमवर आहे मीटिंग का hello
sorry, Sarika, can you put yourself on mute?
yeah sorry
Thank you. So, ensuring that doing a review actually ensures that you know what you are doing in the year and what you need to track going ahead. But coming back to the setting clear goals, similarly, what you did review for the last year, you need to do a goal setting for this year, and doing it a comparison of it in both ways, right? Like seeing what were the goals that you set for last year and setting new goals for themselves. But also next to it, put down what are some of the assumptions you're taking while putting this goal down. Some people take a random assumption of, okay, let's do a 10% increase of whatever we were trying to achieve. Now there is no scientific reasoning behind why people put down this 10%. It might be realistic, it might not be realistic. I generally do not suggest that you put down a 10% or a 15% or whatever that the rule of thumb that people generally take. uh, Take a lot of scenarios in your head. If you're saying that last year students did not perform through my program, it could have been because of the pandemic, it could have been because they did not have access to computers or laptops, anything. But this year, if you've already like set those processes, if you've actually given them all of those things, do you think it'll be realistic to put down a more a higher goal? Or do you think that putting like a similar goal would be more realistic? If you put down a lower goal, what does it do to the child? It will increase the gap. So there is no way that you can actually assess this apart from you understanding about your stakeholders, understanding about your programs, understanding these what these goals actually mean for you as an organization. So setting very clear goals, again, looking at this slide, it seems like it is one slide ka kaam, so it will get over in like an hour or two. But it's not. It's a very people take days to plan this out. You have to go into every detail of your organization. You have to find out, if I need to reach these many children, this is the amount that I require for my organization. And you all know this best. You all are leaders of the organization. You all do this day in and day out. Try to go in as much depth as possible, because this will just provide clarity to you and your people and help you reduce risks in your organization. So setting clear goals, once we've set like qualitative goals, quantitative goals, it's important for us to understand what are some of the risks and assumptions that we are actually taking. So I have put down some potential risk categories. Again, do not, this is an indicative list. There could be other risks and assumptions that happen to an organization to anybody. But some things that you need to put down: risk of excluding some of the primary and secondary stakeholders. If you are actually changing your program completely in this year, then are you losing out on people? Are you only focusing on a certain category and losing out the people? Is it actually hampering the value of your organization, the vision of your organization? What is happening to that? What are some of the health and well-being risks? If this year you're going to reopen your organization and like start working on field, some of you have already done that. What are some of the risks that it might have? uh, if the pandemic again comes back, if your employees get sick or get COVID and things like that happen, how are you ensuring that this doesn't happen from a preventive angle, and not only from looking at what we do next after that? So ensuring that you know what the risks are of that. What are some of the legal and compliance risks? There are a lot of law changes happening. There is quite a lot of governmental pressure that's happening for NGOs. What are you aware about that? Ensuring that you know, if you do not follow compliances, if you do not follow the legal procedures, what happens to your organization? Putting those down, ensuring that you're mitigating for that as well. Risk to achieving impact. Let's say like your strategy this year is that we will do the way we did it last year, and we'll try to stay low, and we'll sort of try to achieve as much as we can, because we don't want to over promise and under deliver, so we'll stay like this. But what happens if you do that? Again, our children leaving out, the beneficiaries you work with are getting impacted because of it. The actual motive that you went out with, is that getting hampered in the whole process? um, Doing that. Then reputational risk. If you as an organization tried to do something, but now you're completely doing something else, and you've completely diverted your program and everything, uh, do your stakeholders know about it? Are they judging what you're doing? Or are they aware about what you're doing? Putting down, if you do things, will it actually hamper our reputation? So understanding that, keeping your communications clear, ensuring that people are aware about what you're doing. Funding risk. If you are exceedingly increasing your programs and saying that, okay, this year we are completely going online so we can reach more people, we can actually achieve a lot more. But do you even have the funding? The funding landscape is very complex right now. Do you think you'll get the funding that you require for this year? Putting these down again in very, very lot of details. And then if there are any other risks, right? If you're based in the North India, there are protests happening, things like that happening. Is that going to hamper your organization? The geographic location that you are in, will that hamper? Putting down risks really like help you as an organization to stay aware about what are the upcoming risks for our organization and plan for it. Um, these are some of the things that you need to do for risks and assumptions. Going ahead, the last thing, which is the action plan, which we generally do. And a lot of people again ask me, like, what is a good strategy statement? How do we put down a strategy? What is a strategy? Right? I have not gone into details of what is a strategy, because I did go through the people in the participants, and I do understand that y'all already are people who've been doing strategy planning. So this is not about what is strategy, but what does a good strategy statement look like? So just like do a check of whether it includes all these three things. A good strategy statement will have three things in it. It will have an objective, which will be a high level goal or a metric. It will have a choice of where do you want to compete, and a choice and plan of how do you want to do it, like how to. So for example, I've put down an example of a sort of strategy statement. Sorry, a high level aspiration, which is to eradicate hepatitis A from India. That's a high level aspiration, the goal that we want to achieve. The strategy statement looks like this: by 2020, lead an ecosystem of healthcare NGOs to establish 100% coverage for hepatitis A vaccination across all districts in India. Now, the short-term projects to implementing the strategy would come down to establishing a distribution plan for all districts, establish plan to tie up with the NGOs as needed by the state and district, identify vaccine sources at high quality and low cost, identify funding sources to pay for vaccines. One thing again I've seen is that we get confused between activities and strategy. So if you see in this circle over here, the vision is what your organization is trying to achieve. The strategy is how do you want to achieve, and it's a complete statement in itself, as you can see over here. And the tactics are the activities, the specific things that you need to do to meet that strategy or to meet that goal. That's how it would look like. Let's not confuse a activity with a strategy. So that's one thing that we will be doing. So just looking at in this statement in itself, right, what is the objective over here? If you see, the objective is the establish 100% coverage for hepatitis A. That's the high level goal or a metric. 100% means that when you're doing it, you will sort of measure it against 100%. Did we meet 90%? Did we meet 80%? Did we meet 100%? Is the strategy that you had put down. The scope over here is a vaccination across all districts. Like, where are you competing? You're competing across all districts. It's not one state or one city. It's across all districts in India. So your scope of work is spread out, and that's the strategy statement is also talking about it. And the third thing it's talking about is the advantage, which is lead an ecosystem of healthcare NGOs. Now, again, this statement could be put more in detail, less in detail, again, however you want to decide. A strategy plan is internal to your organization. So if you understand it, that's great. So leading an ecosystem, that's what you're trying to do. You're leading an ecosystem of healthcare NGOs. So that's the advantage that comes in. So there are the three things that are there in this strategy statement. So you need to ensure that while you're putting down a strategy statement, don't put it as activity. If you put down, we will have an awareness drive in the Mumbai city around Kandivali area. That is not a strategy, that's an activity. The strategy might be something else, and that's why you need to do an activity. So just do a check for that. So that brings the whole action plan of putting down a strategy statement. So the last thing to do is putting down the action plan. Now, putting it all together, right? Like we went through multiple layers of what needs to be done. We did the review for the year. We set down the organizational goal. We just discussed about how to put down a strategy statement, divided into activities, and then it comes with project output and deliverable. So again, having a simple template like this, your organization might have different things, but check if these basic things are there in your strategy plan document where it looks like. Don't just put down this is what we want to do without actually having an action plan for it, without putting down actual activities, what needs to be done, when is it happening, who is going to be doing it. All of these things need to be put down in your action plan. uh, so this is the action plan, and then you put it all together. And to summarize what we've just done is these are the steps we've taken. We've reviewed the last year. You go from top to bottom, and it goes from broad to narrow, right? Like when you go down, it's the most narrowest plan ever. It is as much in detail as possible. So you review the last year. You learn from the last year about your programs, your operations, the goals that you had set. You see whether it was aligned into the values. What do we stand for? Has my values changed since the last year, or do we still believe in the same thing? What are the values that we want to work with in this year? What is our vision? Again, ensuring that every year you're doing your strategy planning, but bringing in your vision and mission again and again is extremely critical, because that drives your strategy, that drives the planning for the organization. So where are we going? What do we aspire to achieve? What's your hope and ambition? um, what do we do? Who do we do it for? Our motivation and our purpose for the organization. Then putting down the strategic objectives, strategic statements. How are we going to progress? If this is what we want to reach, how are we going to do it? Again, to simply put it, there might be different roads to reach the same destination. Which road are you going to be taking as an organization? Again, there is no right and wrong, but what works best for you, right? And then in the end, putting down actions and KPIs. What do we have to do? how do we know that we are actually achieving it? So once you put down an action plan, also putting down what are some of the indicators that will show that I have actually achieved this. So putting down actions, who are going to be the owners. And remember, I said in the start, when you put down an action plan, your strategy is to make sure your organization is flexible. It is allowing for people to change. It is allowing for adaptability. So making sure your strategic plan looks like that. It shouldn't be that I have put down 10 things to do in this year, but everything is going to be done by the leader of the organization. It will require multiple levels of scrutiny. It will require multiple layers of understanding who's doing what and things like that. It has to be adaptable. It has to be changed. And people who come with the thought that no, but strategy plan has been like this, it needs to change. The world has changed and we really need to change with it. So that's what the whole strategy planning process is going to be looking like. And that sort of brings us to the end of the webinar. That's me. I have added my LinkedIn profile and Atma website, and that's my email ID. Please feel free to contact me, and I think we are going to be opening up for questions.
Thank you, Vanita. Yes, so we're opening up for questions. If you have any questions, feel free to put it on the chat box and Vanita may answer them right now. We have about 10 minutes for question and answers. So yeah, go ahead and type it in the chat box. Thank you, Archana.
Thank you, Archana.
I'm guessing people have a lot to think about after the session. There's
Yeah.
too much that they're...
Yeah, so it is definitely a lot of information that I've shared, and obviously it cannot be covered in a 35-minute session. We will be sharing the presentation, of course, but apart from that, if there are any specific questions, right, like this is what Atma does, this is what we want to do for you. You have any specific questions about your organization, how to do it, if you're stuck at some point, do reach out to us. We are happy to sort of help you and guide you through the process as well. But in general, do you have any questions, anything that you want to sort of share, anything that you want to cross check? Hey, thank you so much, Uttara. Thank you.
Okay, there's questions coming up. Let me have a look.
Right.
Okay.
Can I want to pick the questions, or should I go ahead and answer them?
Go ahead, answer whichever you...
Sure. Okay, great. Please help me if I miss out any question or like.
Sure, I'll let you know. Yeah.
So Abhay is actually asking, there are so much going on in a startup that it might be difficult to push the core team to take out time to do this activity. How can we encourage this activity? Great question, Abhay. I think like all of us think about this, right? Like we want to do things right now, like we want to get things done. Nobody has time for planning. But if you ask me, like, what is the most important thing to do? If this is the most important thing to do, like sitting with your team, uh, understanding what went wrong, what went right. Maybe it will take some time right now, but believe me, it will actually help in the future. The way to do it is, again, if you're the leader of your organization, if you are somebody who's driving the organization, sometimes it depends on how your culture of the organization is, right? Like you can come in and you can say like, hey, let's do this together. But if the team is not really motivated to do this, like, then it will not work. However, bring it from the team, understand like what really drives them. Don't ask questions like, okay, we need to plan for the year, what do you think? But ask like, last year was something that we really struggled with. If you had to change something, what can we do? In my experience, what I have seen is that most of the time, people in the organization are very open to having this discussion. And if you are at the position of somebody who can take that decision to take out that time, please do it, because the team will always have that sort of thing where they'll say that, okay, we don't have the time to do this right now, we don't have the time to do that right now. But as a leader, you need to make that space in your organization where you're encouraging to do this activity. Again, there is no set in stone rule of like how to do it, but it's more of a mindset and a culture that you bring in your organization. I hope that answers your question. There is no right and wrong over here, but it's basically like if you
Yes.
are, you know that you need to do it, then you will definitely like try to find time in the organization.
Also, just to add, a lot of organizations do their annual planning around their retreat. That's something like a team retreat that you could plan. You could have everybody sort of, a day or two of just sort of doing sessions, talking about each other, getting to know each other. So it becomes a good team bonding session. And at the same time, a little bit of planning also can happen at that time. So that becomes a good segue into, oh, the year has ended. How have things been? What have we learned this year? And then, okay, what are we doing better for next year? So that really helps. A lot of organizations do it during their team retreat.
Yeah, and this
um,
year especially, like if there hasn't been any team retreat or anything, again, like you can definitely have like some annual sort of a get together where everybody sort of sharing their thoughts and build on it. Again, don't keep it as a one time activity. Do it consistently over a period of time to get these answers. um,
okay, so the next question is from Tushar. He says, how to factor in uncertainty around the fundraising and strategic plan?
yeah, again, like fundraising has been a problem this year for so many organizations. A lot of things have happened. We do have a webinar that happened some time back as well, and some experts from the fundraising area have been speaking about it. To be honest, I don't know, like to plan for uncertainty, knowing what the risks are. If you know, as an organization currently you have two funders who are continuously giving you money, uh, first thing you need to know is whether they will continue to give you the money. So ensuring that you have that answer for yourself first. If you don't have anybody right now, that you're at a risk, right? Like you can't even start the year. Your uncertainty should be, can I raise funds in this year? Sorry, how much do I need to raise in this year? What is my budget looking like, your annual budget looking like? uh, how much do I already have? How much do I need to raise? To raise this, where do I want to go? Do I want to go to a CSR? Do I need to go to a foundation? Do I need to generate revenue? uh, you Once you plan that out, you figure out currently, okay, CSR is right now very tight, and a lot of people are sort of competing around it. Do I have that network to build into that? If I don't, then I have to go and actually like approach a lot more people. Be proactive about networking. Ensuring that you first know that मुझे अगर फंड रेज करना है, क्या मैं कर सकता हूँ, कर सकती हूँ, नहीं तो फिर क्या हमें उस वो बैरियर हम कैसे निकाल सके. So these are some of the things that you need to do. Do not, as an organization who's never done a CSR funding, jump into saying, okay, this year I will do CSR funding. Do not do that. That's the last thing you need to do. Don't do something very, very new. Always rely on things that you've done in the past. Use it to your benefit and build on it. And again, networking is the key. Please like go out, meet with people, make sure your work is being heard of, and sort of planning it in your strategic plan as well. um, so again, yeah, that's the approach I would suggest you to take.
Yeah. And in terms of any planning that you've already done, and if you're thinking of like, all right, how do I plan not knowing how much funding I'm going to receive in the future? You can always create some sort of a priority list to say, okay, these are must haves. This is something we'll do this year for sure. And these are things we'll do if we have X number of funding. And then these are things we'll do if we have another X plus Y number of funding. So that's another way of like just prioritizing, knowing that your funding is going to be uncertain for the year.
Yeah.
Okay. Murlidhar is asking, are you extending support to NGOs in other parts of India, or is it restricted to Maharashtra, Pune? Please clarify. Yes, Atma is available to support NGOs in any part of India. So feel free to get in touch with us. You can get in touch with us on the same email ID that is provided, network at Atma, and then I will connect you to the right kind of people to take the conversation forward.
I think Julian has also has asked, how does small business or MSME be a part of the CSR? That again, like not, it's not my area of expertise, but we can definitely find some information for you and share it with you. Again, depends upon what kind of how are you registered and if it falls under the mandate of the CSR and stuff like that. And we can get back to you once you share a little bit more details around that. But great. If nobody else has a question, Grena, if you can quickly share the link for the to end
Yes,
the.
I would like to share the link of the feedback form with you all in the chat. Please fill in the feedback form so we can plan accordingly the next sessions as well. Before that, Vanita, you wanted to share some other link as well, right?
Yes, the last link, if we can quickly
Yes,
do again, similarly what we did in the start of the session on the Mentimeter, we'll do a second one and we'll try to understand how this session's been useful for you and whether um, what we can do for you as well.
There's another question by Murlidhar. Is there any difference from strategic planning and fundraising strategic planning? Please clarify.
Okay, a great question. Actually, nobody's asked me this before. There is so strategic planning needs to cover organizational strategy plan covers everything in the organization. It would include your fundraising, it would include your programs, it would include your HR strategy, it would include everything, right? And then in detail you have to go into fundraising strategy. So each of your section of your organization, functional area of your organization, will have a strategy in itself, like you are actually planning for that. Overall, as a leader of an organization, you're looking into each of them. But when you go into fundraising strategy, that goes in more details. So similar exercise, the 4-step process that I said, right? Reviewing the last year. So reviewing, which means in your fundraising, how much did you raise last year? How much money came in, how much did you spend, who were your top funders, what were the type of their funders, all of those you review that. Then you set new goals. This year we want to achieve this much, so we need to raise these many funds. To raise these many funds, we will have to either go to CSR foundation, generate revenue, get investments, take loans, whatever you want to do to bring in money. Once you put that down, how much of it you will be putting, like we want to get 50% of our funding from CSR, which means that we will have to approach at least 100 people from the CSR, and that will give us about 10 people who will actually give us funding. So then you break it down into parts. So that's how it would be different. What you do for an organization, you do for fundraising, you would do for HR, you would do for any other section of your organization. That's the main difference, but it falls under the umbrella of strategic planning only.
Vanita, the link is in the chat box.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, let's see. Not bad. Okay, great. That's really nice to know. And there were 3 questions, statements on this. I understand the mindset I need for 2021. I understand the steps to go about planning for this year, and I will be using the learnings. I'm glad that this, for a lot of people, it's been somewhere around the right side. I know that gap that's still there. Those are some questions and concerns and like apprehensions that we all have, which is fine, and it's okay to have that. We are all dealing with ambiguity, and it's fine. I would actually recommend, don't stop here. uh, find people that can help you, find people that actually support your organization, find value in it, and take advice. This year is all about taking advice. Don't make decisions by yourself, right? Ensure that people are there who are supporting you. There are people who are validating what you're doing, because that's what will take us forward. So with that, actually, Grena, you can share your
Yes.
overall feedback form if you want.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am just sharing the feedback form in the chat. Everybody, please click on the link and fill the feedback form. This feedback form will sort of help us understand what topics are necessary for you all, what kind of topics would be useful that we could take on in the future webinars, and how can we make the webinar better for you to for it to be the most useful for you in the 1 hour that we have. So please fill in that form. All right. And also, I hope the session was helpful and informative for all of y'all. Thank you, Vanita, for the insights on building adaptability into our annual planning process while imagining the future and acting in the present. Your ability to help us imagine the planning process with practical examples, especially related to the recent COVID scenario, was very, very useful. Also, as mentioned, everyone, I will be sending you an email with the presentation and a recording of the session. If you have any questions, you can add it to the feedback form, and we'll get back to each one of y'all as and when we can. Thank you for your participation, and until next time, goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.